Welcome to the Leadership by Design podcast, where thoughtful leaders share lessons from their journey. I'm Dave Adams, founder of the Business Freedom Group, and today we're very happy to have Sammy James with us. Welcome, Sammy.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Great. Well, I'd love to start off with you telling our audience a little bit about yourself, your company, what you do, and the journey that got you there.
Yeah, I started out as a founder of my company. I'm the founder of Leverly.com. And Leverly used to be called Speak to Leads, which was launched in 2010. My background is in media and on the agency side, and then again, and on the client side, marketing, sales. So sales, marketing, media, and interestingly enough, one of my first clients at an agency, I was working in Canada. I'm from the States, but I lived in Canada for a while. And so I was helping to build turnkey value-added systems on top of, mini computers back in the day. So I've always had this technology thread. Anyway, long story short, I worked in VC-backed companies in San Francisco back in the late 90s, early 2000s during that whole boom. And it exposed me to a lot of cool things. And I had a couple of the companies were telephony based. We did song recognition before smartphones, for example. And then fast forwarding to found myself working again in an agency, my own agency in San Diego, had a lot of clients that were B2C clients. Education was a big category for us. It still is, for-profit education. They spend a lot of money to get one, as they call it, butt in a seat, which is, somewhere $1,500, $2,000 was kind of the number back then. Still is probably today, and spend a lot of money, to generate those leads. And what was happening was the clients were telling me that their reps were not calling those inbound form leads. I just thought that was crazy because I never had a lead in my life, number one. Number two, much less somebody who took the time to fill out a form and say, I'm interested in what you offer. Please contact me. It's like, it just blew my mind that they didn't call them, And so I thought about, well, okay, instead of trying to train the people, instead of doing that, what can I do to make this easy for them? I said, what if we took the form and turned it into a phone call? And so when someone fills out a form, they hit submit, that data gets processed into an application that sits on top of a communication as a service platform like Twilio or whatever. And then, we call the admissions rep in this case, and it's like they pick up the phone. Hey, you've got a new lead. Their name is blah, blah, blah. Their program of interest is blah, blah, blah. Press 1 to call them. They press 1, dials the lead answers. They're like, wow, you guys are amazing. And, so just an idea I had in my head. Didn't have any clue whether or not it had any merit or it would ever work, both technically or conceptually. So actually, it just turned out that it did work really, really well. And it worked so well. I mean, we were seeing immediate increases of like 300%. So to me, it was just an idea that may or may not work, which is that if you have a prospect, a lead, whether it comes into you by form or by phone or however it arrives inbound, it all starts with the conversation. So the more conversations you have, the more sales you have. So I thought, gosh, why isn't anybody else talking about this? And this is also still fascinating to me today, is that I think people give the sales team a little too much deference, maybe, and they assume that they know what they're doing. And, and not to take anything away from salespeople, because they're amazing and I love them and I'm one of them. And I think it's a necessary thing and always will be. But as far as the administrative part and the operations side of it and the process side, that's not what salespeople are good at. And so I by just taking that off their hands and saying you're no longer responsible for following up on leads, just answer the phone when you're available. If you're not, don't worry about it. Follow the prompts. If you speak to them, great, you own the lead. If you don't, just hang up and forget it. That's nice. Because now when I walk in the morning, I don't have a big task list of people I need to get in touch with and try to, dial and try to contact, which is not a fun job for salespeople. So for all those reasons, I guess it worked. And so I decided that was reason enough to start a company, because I thought everybody is talking about, I need more leads. We need better quality leads. That was kind of the mantra. And it still is today, probably. I don't hear it as much, but it is. Everyone's still looking for leads. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Have you squeezed all the juice you can out of what you already have? 16 years later, still focused on the same thing, increasing conversations. And now, of course, with AI, it gives us an opportunity to expand that, to be able to provide backup rep via AI voice, to be able to answer, not just call form leads, but able to answer calls after hours.
But let me jump in here a little bit before we sort of get down the rabbit trail of AI.
Yeah.
For me, listening to this, the leadership insight I would pull out of the story you just told us, great story,
Okay. Uh-huh.
is instead of trying to fight human behavior, lean into it, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
because salespeople are right, and yes, they have thicker skin than average, but nobody likes to be rejected. And if you put a list in front of them, it's like here are a whole bunch of people who are going to reject you,
Potentially reject you.
right? So who wants to dial that,
Yeah,
right?
right. Yeah. Yeah. Any
So
volunteers?
so you're making it feel like a warm lead to that salesperson because
Yeah. Yeah. There's
they're
something
getting
about
reached
the,
out to,
yeah.
right?
Well, yeah, kind of weird, right? I mean, well, even the reattempts, because in what works is two things. Speed. Okay. Speed is the number one today, even today, the number one driver of conversion, not just connection, but conversion. Obviously, you have to speak to them first, but being
Hmm.
first, got to be fast. And what happens is when you call a lead, even today, it blows my mind, 16 years later, well, 17, 18, really, if you count the beta years, people are delighted that you called them that fast. And they give you the meta meaning behind that. They just give you so much credibility. They're like, my God, you guys must be trustworthy. I mean, you haven't even opened your mouth yet.
You're leaning into human behavior on both sides of that call, making the salesperson feel like they're wanted, and then by fast response, making the customer feel like
Yeah.
they're wanted.
And like, let me be clear. I had zero idea about either one of those things, how they would be received. All right. I mean, people go,
Oh, inspiration, intuition, however you got there, it's all
yeah,
good.
right. Just an experiment. And thank God. I mean, we're talking about by now, I haven't added up recently, but let's just say somewhere between 6 and 10 million calls. Okay. Not one complaint about getting called within 60 seconds. And then on the sales side, they love it because they don't have to keep track of anything. Because see, the other side of the coin, besides speed, is persistence. Because what
Mhm.
happens is that salespeople give up too fast. And the reason they give up too fast is a new shiny opportunity comes along,
Mhm.
replaces the old one. Well, that list gets longer, 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 longer. You call these people twice, maybe three times, and the average lead gets 2.1 calls. Because again, the job is speak to the lead. What can we do to improve that? Whatever that is, let's focus on that. So the persistence is also cool because what it does is they just hang up if they don't speak to the lead or leave a voicemail if it's appropriate. And then we call them and say, hey, let's go. It's the second attempt. Now, again, we've removed the bottleneck. The bottleneck being assigning a lead. And no one's ever told me why leads are assigned. And I'm just using my own common sense, which may or may not be good, which tells me this. You assign a lead so someone's accountable for getting in touch with. I think that's really the only reason. Because it's like, oh, well, I thought you were going to call. No, I thought you were. Well, that doesn't work, right? So, okay, it's your job to get in touch. Well, now if we remove that, then guess what happens? You're busy. You're on the phone talking to another lead or a customer. Okay, cool. Well, we're not going to let this cool off because we only have seconds. So we'll give it to the next person, the next person, the next person, whoever's available. And then whoever's available makes the call. If they connect, boom, they own it. If they don't, hang up, forget about it. The next attempt comes in, the next attempt, the next attempt. All these attempts are custom, related to the origin of that initial lead. So instead of doing what I call willy-nilly follow-up, which is, well, I got some time, I think I'll make some dials. I mean, that's how it goes, right? And that doesn't that's not scientific. Okay. So instead, look, we apply the science. So anyway, that's also a neat part of it for the salespeople. They don't have to keep track and they don't have to have notes. They don't have to have tasks. And their task list is empty in the morning. The only thing that they have to do on the task list would be something related to a lead they've already spoken to, which they're going to have energy for, right? Because that's closing the deal. They're engaged in the process, and in closing. That every salesperson loves that part of the sale. But anyway, so I think, again, I'm just always fascinated with what makes this work since I didn't know if it would or wouldn't. And now that it does, I'm always looking at it. Well, why? Why does it work? Why does it not? And just try to get a better understanding of what I can lean into more, right? In terms of the product.
Well, I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit for having insights into human behavior. I mean, for me, that's the why it works, is because you're letting humans be humans topic. That's the mega trend everybody's talking about. But you've been doing this for a long time. So what is changing for you about the AI? Is it just that you can organize your system better, or is it fundamentally operating differently?
We were using machine learning, probably 10 years ago.
Right.
And machine learning which you would call like, that's kind of related, right, to AI.
Yeah.
A cousin. I don't know technically how you would categorize it, but it was the early, let's call it the early stages of AI. So machine learning would allow us to, because the other thing salespeople are really notoriously bad at, because they just are, including me, is making notes about the conversation and posting those notes into the CRM and keeping track of those notes, so that if somebody else if they decide to move on to another company and somebody else comes in to take over their book or their leads, they have history to look back on before they pick up the phone and call. Anyway, you know the story. So most of 50% of all that stuff's made up, in every CRM. I'm convinced of that. So this way, what we did is say, look, at the end of the call, it would say, if you'd like to record notes for this call, press 4. Okay. Then that recording got transcribed and then posted into the CRM. That's how we did it about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And so AI, wow, oh my gosh. Now you can take, two things have happened. Pre-AI, it took about, if a lead, the speed to lead from the form to the rep was 2 seconds. Okay. And then it's just a matter of ring, 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 how many rings it takes. The rep answers, the rep listens to the prompt, and then presses, 1, calls a lead. So let's just say that's around 30 to 40 seconds, gap between form submission, speaking to the lead. So under 60, which is a good window. Okay, now with AI, two things. One, if AI replaces the rep, because the rep's not available, because now what we're doing is we're creating an AI voice agent that is on the team in a group. You can add them to whatever group you want, and you can assign whatever tasks you want to them. So let's say the task is, if we don't answer, or during the day, we want you to call them and set the appointment. Okay, let's say that's the business rule. Well, guess how fast the AI calls the lead? 4 seconds. Okay, so that's better. So that's one thing. And the next thing is the call notes. Whatever custom prompt we want to use to analyze the transcription and extract whatever is of value and meaningful and actionable to that particular business. And then that is now part of what gets deployed to the CRM, not just the summary of the call. So I could go on and on about the benefits of AI, but really what we've built is we're just adding in a rep to the team, and we're saying, you use this rep how you want. Think of it as a new hire. And let's say you go, well, I don't want to tie up my team doing reattempts, because there's a diminishing connection rate. Usually the first one's the highest, second one just starts to drop, okay, and down to the 6th attempt, or if you do more. So, but those are worthwhile because you still can get a connection and get a conversation. So there's definitely meat on that bone. So let's keep doing it. But instead of tying the team up, let's assign it to AI. So listen, I'll take the first attempt, and then on the second, and then you know what? You take all the rest. Okay, AI. And so really AI for us is kind of a hybrid team member, if you will, and that can do and take care of a lot of other things. Now, it also happens that if you have this agent, then you can also apply it to inbound calls, because we've always focused on the forms, because the forms were anybody can answer a phone and say hello, but not everybody can pick up the call and dial the form. So now, guess what we also look at is, well, wait a minute. What about the calls you do miss during the day, during business hours? Do you know how many calls you miss during business hours? Most people don't. Okay. Do you know how many calls you miss after hours? Most people don't. Do you know how many people hang up or leave versus leave a voicemail? Do you know how many people actually ever call you back? I mean, most people don't. These are real leaks in the inbound bucket. So AI is brilliant because it's legal to answer your phone 24/7, according to the FCC. Beautiful. Now, it's not legal to call an inbound lead after 9 p.m. in most states, before 8 a.m. or after 9, typically. That's not legal. So we don't do that. You have to queue that lead up and you call them the next business day. And then there's also the orchestration side. Well, how about, we send a text automatically if we don't connect, and then automatically send this email. And so you set up the cadence, the intervals, the channels, the messaging, all automated based on what attempt it is and, the context of that particular lead. And then you can just, put your foot to the gas and say, okay, when the call comes in, we recognize the number, the AI is going to go to the CRM, look up the number, see if they're an existing customer. If they are, understand the context, and then have a conversation that's contextual based on the history of that customer. Wow, cool. Or they're new. This is a brand new customer, not existing, so I'm going to handle them this way. It's like a new business, even though it's the same platform. We're still using the same technology we've been building on, an application we've been building, refining over those 16 years. We're just adding this layer of intelligence and ability that we never had, because in fact, what I used to do is I created this little calculator. It's called the attainable revenue calculator, and said, here's how many calls you actually did not answer when we called you with new leads, the first attempt, second, third. And when you do answer and you do call a lead, here's your average connection rate. And here's your conversion rate on a sale, from a conversation to a sale. Here's your average revenue per customer. So that's your reality today. What if you change one variable, which is to answer 100% of our calls? Here's how much money you're leaving on the table. So you may want to consider hiring somebody else. Well,
Right.
Now we have that somebody else. And so now I'm able to fill that gap in. And now guess what? Every one of our customers who uses AI with the form to phone application has a 100% response rate.
Now, normally on this podcast, I don't go quite this deep into someone's product technology, but I'm charmed by it.
Well, anyway, I'm sorry. You can cut it all out.
No, it's good. It's all good. But let me shift you a little bit. So
Yeah.
in an organization that's considering using all of this, do you find, that there's a certain amount of resistance or not? What happens that makes some people resist kind of the new tech versus doing it the old way?
Well, I mean, first of all, the old way is, what do you mean by what is the old way?
Well, as you accurately described in the beginning, it's sort of like handing a sales rep a list, right?
Well, I got to tell you, I mean, just forgetting AI for a second, just our technology, our application that turns a form into a phone call. Most people are just not problem aware to begin with, much less solution aware. Our best customers are customers who are natural born optimizers. They are not satisfied. They're always looking for a way to tweak it, right? Constantly improving. And they seek us out. That's where we get our clients. People literally looking for a solution and they go, oh my God, I can't believe I wish I'd found this 5 years ago. What has changed, though, I think people are more receptive to AI. Mm-hmm. And so what's happening is it's kind of like almost the Trojan horse effect. We're saying, yeah, we can do AI for you, but we're really kind of saying, well, why don't you start with your forms? Because, let's see what that does just with your team. And let's find out how your team's doing without AI. Then let's add AI and let it fill in the gap. And because you'll know what you're losing right now before you even spend more on AI. And I think that's an intelligent approach. Some people are early adopters and some aren't, as you know, crossing the chasm kind of thing.
Right.
And we're still obviously in that early adopter stage. So those are the people that we typically attract. But what I found is that they have a very distorted sense of AI's, the reality of AI. They think it's magic and it can do anything and it's easy and it's unrealistic. And that's just ridiculous. But what they don't appreciate is how hard it is to train AI. And, you're dealing with like a stack of, the LLM and the text to speech and the voice and the prompting. And I mean, it's so hard to scaffold all this together, all these different technological components and the intelligence of the LLM to be able to have a natural conversation with somebody with voice. It's not easy. And so that's one thing. They don't have very realistic expectations of how good it is.
So in the journey that you've been on developing this for people, has there been a significant impact from a particular person or a particular situation that has kind of opened up your leadership? Because you're leading your customers as well as whoever you're working with in your organization.
I'm a big fan of reality. And like the truth equals what works is kind of my, philosophy. And that's with humans or that's with technology, that's with whatever. So I kind of lean into that. I like abstract ideas and concepts and I like to, think of great things, but I always shine a light on them and hold them up against that reality. Teaching, introducing this concept of AI into a business is new for me too. And how do I communicate? I'm having to refine and constantly question how I approach clients. And like, for example, I had a client just yesterday say their business is a little bit hurting because we don't do the lead gen for them. We don't do their marketing. I'm happy to help if I can and refer things and give ideas, but I don't do it. That's not my business. I focus. So so to save a couple $100 basically, or something like that, he's saying, we don't want you to take the overflow calls during business hours. So if we miss it, let it go to voicemail or let them hang up. And I'm like, let me look at the numbers. And I looked at the numbers from last month and 51 appointments were set during business hours by AI last month. They closed 70% of those appointments at an average rate of like $1,800 some dollars. And so that's about, I don't know, $73,000 they're saying no to save a couple $100 a month. So obviously I haven't done my job. I don't like selling smoke and mirrors. So I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to say, let's all shine a really bright light on the reality. So, I mean, one thing I did learn over the years, and I've leaned into now more than ever, especially with AI, is I send out a daily recovery report. And it says, here's how many leads we recovered last night or yesterday in your business. In other words, by recovering, these leads would have gone to voicemail, you would have missed the call, or you would have not called them at all. We recovered. They're yours because you earned them 10 appointments yesterday set from leads you wouldn't have known about. And what's really weird is that customers kind of, all of a sudden they're like, they forgot that they didn't know about, they're not really appreciative of the fact they don't know about those leads. It's like, how do I get people to understand that these leads were just two ships passing in the night you would not have seen?
Well, I loved how you framed it before.
Now, what I've learned is first step is, okay, let's get the reality on the table. Give me a data. Go to your phone company, ask them for every call that hung up. Now, do you know how many of your form leads you spoke to? The answer is no. Do you know how many times you tried to call them? The answer is no. So, okay, how many did you get? How many did you close? And can you guess how many you might have spoken to? I mean, this is the problem. Most of these businesses don't even have this data, right?
Right.
If they do, beautiful.
You're talking about shining a light on reality, right? To get problem aware, move to solution aware. So much of the stuff in the news is about replacing humans when the highest value of AI is probably to make the humans you've got so much more productive.
Let AI do what it does well. Let humans do what they do well.
Well, thanks again, Sammy. It's been a real pleasure. To our listeners, thanks for tuning in to Leadership by Design, to keep your thinking fresh with lessons from thoughtful leaders like Sammy. We'll see you next time.
Okay.